Did the application need, okay, so this is question 3.7. Did the application need to be customized to meet the business requirements? Who was responsible for customizing? So for Oracle Financial specifically, I think it was more out of the box, and then we put in a piece that provides the customized reports that we need. So it will read from the application, and then we can customize this piece, because it gets a little more messy when you start customizing the application, because we have access to the internal database objects, and then it makes it hard for the vendor to support you because they don't know how to help you if something breaks. So for Oracle Financial specifically, that's what we did. For other applications, I think we try not to touch anything either, because once you start, you don't want to touch change vendor stuff too much unless you ask the vendor to do it for you. Then they'll support it. 3.8, were any business requirements changed to fit the application? Who was responsible for approving the changes? There are changes that happen all the time. Trying to think. Any of the requirements changed? I can't think of anything, but there's always changes. And if there are changes, then, there's a certain amount of knowns that are made known going in, like the scope of the work. And if the scope of the work changes, then someone needs to approve it. So I only do what's within the scope of the work. And if someone needs something out here, then they got to go talk to someone higher up and tell me to get that included into the scope of work. So I don't care who approves it. I think it's someone higher up. It might be up at it usually is up probably to the executive sponsor. If a business requirement has to change. Because if things changes and the scope of the work changes, it doesn't just affect the work that I'm doing, it affects the budget and the timeliness of the delivery of the application also. And whether we have the expertise in-house to do it or not. Okay, so this is the question number 4 is application implementation. How did the project participants know that the development process was completed? Everyone knows because everyone's in the same meetings. So if you don't know, then you're not doing your work. Who managed the implementation process? IT staff, business user, or vendor? It's the staff, and we report up to, in a project, the staff manages it. So I'll manage it from the database side. Other people, Leah, get out of my video. Huh? Are you trying to steal this show? Oh my goodness, child. So then the project manager keeps everyone moving, and then we the staff, we're implementing everything. But then the PM will make sure everyone's doing what they do. 4.3, who participated in the implementation process, testing, installation, acceptance, training, ready for you. Include names and organizations. Everyone is included. You need the application team. That's the team that's going to be supporting this application and that owns the application. You need the infrastructure team. The infrastructure team is more of the everything in a data center. So you're talking storage, network, Unix engineers, database engineers, any kind of messaging infrastructure that you need. That's like all infrastructure work. Then you also need the development side. So the people who are writing the code, the people who are writing the code to go through messages, sending messages back and forth. But I don't know what they do on their side, but yeah, the code, the developers, and the developers usually work with it's the application team. So it's usually the same group of people that will do this. So for database, I'll work with all of them through all their testing phases. And cutover, it's usually the same group of people. We don't say I do this work during development and tests, and then I throw it over the fence to someone else in production. We'll see it's usually the same group of people that will see everything through development, tests to cutover. What additional testing was performed during, this is 4.4, sorry. What additional testing was performed during implementation? System test, stress test, beta test, acceptance test, who prepped the test scripts? It's all tested, and that's more from the application side. They have to determine what's considered, what the scope of the work is and what needs to be tested to consider this a go or no go. Because once we get towards closer to cutover time, there's a date written on the calendar that says go, no go. And that is very important, because that's when the application owner, which is the executive sponsor of the project, decides if we're at that point, are we ready to make our cutover like in 2 weeks. So that's a very important date. So we do all the testing, everything. We try to keep on track. Sometimes we're not, but we still do. Who preps the test script? That's the application team, along with their developers. It's up to them how they decide what needs to be tested. For 5, how was system acceptance accomplished? What acceptance criteria were used? Who was defined in the criteria? Was there any concern in the application when accept? That's done by the application team. And they have their own set within the scope of the work that's being done. They will determine what a whole set of test cases to accomplish system tests. And there will be like maybe a week or 2 where they just focus on system tests. I don't know what the criteria was. 4.6, how was the cutover to the new application accomplished? When was it accomplished? Was any consideration given to whether the application could accommodate projected horizontal and vertical growth? Could it? So not just Oracle, but so for Oracle, it's a huge application. So I think we were down for maybe like a day or 2 while they got everything over, because it's terabytes of data that we're trying to move. At some point we have to say, this is the last time that anyone can get into the system. We're going down, so we go down and then get everything up on the new system, get all the data ported over, and then we come back up. So not just Oracle. Oracle Financials is huge, so it just takes that amount of time. But with any other application too, that's what we do. There has to be a certain point where we say, okay, you guys have to give us the time to say this is everything that's in here, so that we can port it over to the new system and then bring it up so that everything's still in sync when everything comes up on the new side. Was consideration given to whether the application could... Yeah, there was. For growth, that analysis is very important, and it's always done usually at the beginning of a project when we're doing kind of the estimates, the POCs. We'll give that kind of information, and specifically for my group, we'll plan for the amount of storage that we need. And we're not responsible for giving the storage amount, but we're responsible for talking to the application team and working with them to see how much they're going to grow over time. And we need to build our environment big enough so that they have enough space for at least 2 years of growth if they just went live, so that we don't have to add space like 2 weeks after they go live because we weren't planful enough. 4.7, are any special skills, training, or expertise necessary to install and implement this application? Does the organization staff have those skills and expertise? If not, what actions have the organization taken to acquire them? Okay, so for Oracle Financial specifically, it takes a very specific person to know this application. It's a very difficult product to manage. And Leah, stop it, or you're gonna have to get out of here. Okay? Are you gonna stop it? Yeah. I'm gonna close the door and lock it. Okay? If you don't stop it. Okay. So there's a big group, small but bigger than what an average application project team looks like, but not small by any means, because it's more than one person. So these people specifically just deal with this application, and they know the ins and outs of it. So if there's any problems, then you can get the whole team together, and you have a person from each group that can help you troubleshoot everything. But it does take training and skills